Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast, where the legal industry gets real. I'm your host, Etta Rosa, legal consultant, speaker, and founder of Etta Rosa LLC and the Limitless Paralegal Academy. This isn't your stuffy legal studies school lecture. We're talking mindset, money, modern workflows, and how to build a career and a life you don't need a vacation from. Let's cut the fluff, raise the bar, and change the game one conversation at a time. If you like what you hear, feel free to share and send us your feedback. Now let's talk paralegal. Hey guys, welcome back to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast bonus episode. Okay, today's episode is one that I have been really looking forward to because we are going somewhere a little different and honestly somewhere really important. We talk a lot on this show about the work we do, the cases we handle, the clients we serve. But today we're talking about the people behind all of that, including us. Mental health and addiction touch every corner of the legal world, our clients, our colleagues, our families. And as legal professionals, we are often right in the middle of it, whether we know it or not. So, what role can we actually play? What tools exist? What does the law say? My guest today has built his entire career around answering exactly those questions, and he's bringing all of it to the table today. Listen in for more. All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. I'm your host, Etta Rosa, and today I have Mark, which is a very interesting character, person, and really it just fell on my lap. Honestly, it was just the universe, God, whoever you believe in, that brought him into my world. And I'm not going to say anything else. I don't want to be a spoiler alert. So Mark, can you come in and let us know who you are and kind of what you're up to? Because it's so intriguing.
So I'm an attorney. This is my 32nd year of practicing law. And for the last 10 years, I've been the co-founder, along with my wife, of a law firm. We're based here in South Florida, although we also have offices throughout Central Florida and Northern Florida and Boston. And the mission of our law firm is to save families whose loved ones are suffering from substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery. So we are speaking to families from all over the country, typically mums and dads who have an adult child with a long history of drug use and mental illness and treatment that doesn't work, if they'll even go. They're probably med non-compliant. They may well have been a guest of the state through either the criminal justice system or the mental health system, and they may even have suffered an overdose. And the family calls us to fix that problem, and that's what we do.
Oh, well, tell us the story of how you got into this because you didn't always work and focus on mental health and addiction. So tell us a little bit, rewind, and tell us how this came to you.
Yeah, so I was a prosecutor in the mid 90s here in Palm Beach County. So from 94 to 99, I was prosecutor. And it was my first job out of law school. So I was, really gung ho. And when you're a prosecutor, you're like, okay, let's lock up all the bad guys and bad girls, by the way. Um, so I was very excited about the job. I'd been an intern in 1993, so I sort of knew what I was getting into. But I realized pretty quickly that there was a little bit of a problem with the criminal justice system. So the mandate today, even back in the 90s, here in Florida, in our criminal justice system, is to punish first and rehabilitate second. Well, these days we have what are called diversionary courts. So we have mental health court, we have drug court, we have veterans court, certain courts where as long as the offense, as long as you're not a repeat offender or it's not a serious violent felony crime, the idea is let's get you some help, get you the treatment you need so that you don't come back. Well, in the mid to late 90s, we didn't have those diversionary courts. So if you came back often enough, we just locked you up for as long as we could. There was no other choice. And so that was my first real exposure to the behavioral health issue, because what I realized was these were people who had, drug issues, mental health issues that was going completely untreated, and they just
Yeah.
kept coming back. Um, so after that, I did a lot of defense work. I can't tell you I enjoyed doing defense work as much as I enjoyed being a prosecutor. I also got married and divorced about 25 years ago. I spent a year in DC getting a master's in law and working on a presidential campaign. And I spent 3 years in California between 2010 and 2013, basically tripping the light fantastic, having a good time, trying to figure my life out, failing the California bar exam multiple times until I basically ran out of money and had to come back to Florida. And it was when I came back to Florida that as you alluded to, I met somebody that not basically, that's not fair, completely changed the direction of my life. Because at that point, I had nothing going on professionally. I had nothing going on personally. And here I was 48 years old. 48 years old. I had nothing to show for my life at all.
Mm.
So it was a mess. So that's where the fun starts.
I know, and that's where we are today. So I love it. Hey, by the way, did you ever pass the California bar or no?
Failed it 3 times. I got within a percentage point the last time I passed it. Um, and friends of mine kept saying to me, the universe is trying to tell you something. You're not supposed to be in California. You're supposed to be in Florida.
Look at that.
And they were right.
They
Because
were right.
I spent a year studying for the California bar and failed it 3 times. And I spent 3 weeks studying for the Florida bar and passed it the first time. So, my ego was somewhat bruised. But sometimes you have to sit quietly and listen to what the universe is trying to tell you. And sometimes your failures are actually the key to your success. And they certainly were in my life.
No, absolutely. I always feel like within those failures, you also have lesson to learn, right? So I'm a big believer that if the lesson keeps coming back to you, like that same circumstance keeps coming, there's something there that you haven't learned yet and that you need to move forward on and kind of really work it out in order to figure out where the next step goes, right? Because I remember I hit a roadblock on my business probably around 2, 3 years ago, and it was leading me to a different path. Like obviously, we start businesses and they don't really end up being what you want it to be. And then it comes, as you know, you kind of like divert and go here, go there, you test it out and you try to figure it out in order to scale. And then, ultimately you find a way where it's like, oh, well, that's what I need to do. That's why I'm done with this chapter. I need to go on to the next one. That's what's going on right now. And so thankfully we figured that out and everything's been smooth sailing ever since, knock on wood, please. So, having said that, though, I mean, this is a pretty tough situation. I remember when we first spoke, literally in the middle of our conversation, you were like, give me a second, I need to take this. And it was a parent, asking for your service. So I feel like this is a 24/7, job. Like, how do you balance that, especially knowing the severity of it? Because in this particular situation, you alluded that the person was about to like take their life possibly. So these are really big situations that you guys deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time. I mean, really, for the first 7 years that my wife and I had the firm, it was just we were doing everything: the sales, marketing, meeting with the clients, drafting the pleadings, running to court. I mean, all of it. And after 7 years, that started to really grind me down, both physically and mentally.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, I used to give clients my cell phone, and they would call at all hours of the night, and I just sort of had to put a stop to that. I mean, our cases get filed on an emergency basis, but if something is that critical where it's life and death, you should be calling 911. I mean,
Mm.
I operate within the confines of the court system for the most part. So we can only move so fast. I mean, we move quick. I mean, I can get a court order done in less than 24 hours, but if somebody's in crisis, you got to pick up the phone and call 911. That's what it's there for. But families do like to call, and they did used to call in the middle of the night, and I would take those calls, and gladly so. But our phone is still answered 24/7. I'm just not the one answering the phone, because at some point I started to literally break down.
Yeah.
So and these days I spend probably more time talking about what we do than running to court. I'm fortunate that the last 3 years, we've been able to hire a couple of great lawyers who are frankly better than I am, and they do all the running to court. And, I do consults with families. My wife and I lead the lawyers, and we deal with any issues that come up, but they're really good at what they do. So we have a lot of resources, and, this is what we do, and it's a labor of love. It really is.
You've come a long way.
I have in many ways. Yep. I have a lot less hair. There's a bit more of me, but we've helped a lot of families along the way. So
Yeah, no, I feel like that is one law that I never really got into, right? Which was criminal. I dabbled into a little bit of family law for like a year or two. Wasn't for me, especially as a recent parent. It was just too much for me to see that constant disillusion, no pun intended, of the despair when it comes to parents that are going through an emotional roller coaster and using their children as a pawn, right, for whatever agenda they had. So, I always say this, I know my shortcomings and I've hired accordingly. So it's not that we don't, handle those type of consults. I just have subcontractors that handle it. So I'm like, okay, here you go. This is your thing, This is a criminal law firm. You got this. So I get it. I do not answer my phones either. I don't think I ever have though. I always had an answering service. I never was the person. So kudos to you for that. All right, so let's end this conversation on a good note because this is so like it was a lot of up and downs. It was a lot of roller coaster. So let's end this with a little takeaway, a little resource, maybe a little happy note to our audience that they can kind of move forward with.
So yeah, I mean, look, if you're a family out there who's dealing with, a loved one who has been suffering for a long time with, a behavioral health issue, drug use, mental illness. One of the things that I've really tried to do a lot of is to make sure that resources are available. So if you go on, we have two websites, both of them have an ebook. They also have they have video content. If you actually just Google me or go to YouTube and look up Astor Simovitch Law, which is the name that you can see above my shoulder here, on our YouTube channel, there are about 780 videos from 2 to 8 minutes long that cover just about every topic that I think we've ever encountered when it comes to these issues. And if you can't find the video that, answers your question, send me a message and I'll make one for you. So I think a big part of what we do is making sure that families get the information they need. Right? I mean, you can go to Google and Google this stuff, but if you want to know how it works in the real world and how it works, say, in Miami versus Orlando versus Tallahassee versus Jacksonville, you can only answer that question if you've handled cases in those jurisdictions. It just comes from experience. I mean, you know that in the university you work in, right? And there's no substitute for that experience. And so I try to give information out there for free based on, real world experiences with handling cases. So there's a lot of information out there, and it's available. You can, peruse to your heart's content. If you want to call the office and speak to one of our intake folks, there's no charge for that. And they can give you, lots of options. Some are legal, some are non-legal. And hopefully that'll, put your mind at rest that there's an option available to you that probably works for you.
I
So
love that.
that's what we're
Well,
doing.
just remember that the links will be in our description box, so if you guys can just click on it. You don't have to go searching for them, but we will have all the links in the description. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you do day in and day out. I believe that what you do gives other people hope, and that's why I like to share stories like this on the podcast. So until next time, until justice is served, we'll be here. Bye, guys. Before you go, the Limitless Paralegal Tour is coming to a city near you. We have 3 stops: Fort Lauderdale, Phoenix, and Chapel Hill. Speakers that have actually reached Limitless Paralegal status are going to teach you everything that they know. You get a journal, pen, food, networking, all for $149. And each event is capped out at 100 people, so seats go fast. Link is in the show notes. Grab your seat at limitlessparalegalacademy.com/tours. See you there.